Should be good, Bruce.
All right, call the meeting to order. Rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, which roll call please?
Yes. Steve Bigelow.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Lori Belargin. Here. Lacey Oster. Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Danny Erickson. Here. Matt Kukal.
Here. All right, our district mission, together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Anyone want to make a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the following amendment. To remove policy 8330, student records, from the list of policies, as there were no changes or updates in that particular policy, so there's nothing to update, so it can be removed from the list. 8330, student records?
Was it on there a mistake then?
Yeah.
Got it.
Any second?
I can second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, go forward with public comment. We have two. Corey, chief start.
Evening, Corey Miller, 100th Street, Somerset. Just wanted to make a quick comment on the topic of the school resource officer, and earlier in the year, you know, his hours being cut and kind of not knowing about it until later and stuff like that. So I think transparency on the decision going forward for next year is something that I think parents are really interested in learning about, and a full-time resource officer with everything going on just seems like something we have to fit in the budget. You know, defense is the best offense. If there's a sense of security, you know, some statistical number of reducing the chance of anything happening. So I think it's much more of just sending a message of how we approach that, and looking forward to what you guys decide, and looking forward to more discussion during the meetings, you know, so that we do watch all the meetings on YouTube at home. It's hard to make it to all these as every year the kids get older, you know, activities and such. So yeah, a lot of times it's, you hear of a topic, but you have to really dig to figure out, okay, what's going on with this thing. It'd be nice to have just, you know, a few more comments on how decisions are made and where to go and stuff like that. And then the only other thing I had, great year. Thank everybody for all the hard work we're doing to make the school better every year. The main thing that we hear from parents and our own kids and a lot of parents is just the general respect level in the school. And from my experience, my family being in public education, it really is a leadership thing. If the teachers are supported and can, you know, uphold that standard, it makes it easier, and that's just something that just makes common sense. From someone who's not there every day, it's hard to know exactly what goes on, but I don't know how you can learn if the classroom is extremely noisy and busy, and that's just a common thing we hear from our kids, other parents, that type of thing. So it'd be nice to hear kind of what you guys think about that. Maybe it'll be in the survey. I haven't done that yet. Do it soon. Everybody do the survey. And thanks for all you guys do.
Thanks, Corey. Rudy Perez.
Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure. Parents, thanks for being here. I think it's so important to have that. Students, for being here. My name is Rudy Perez. I am the president of the National Association of School Resource Officers. A little bit about me is I'm an immigrant to this country, this awesome, amazing country. I overstayed my stay here. I came here at the age of 10, and I said I'm never going back, because to live in America and to have the American privilege is amazing. I left a country that was riddled with crime and craziness, and I moved to Los Angeles, where I became a police officer at 21. And at 21, up to 10 months ago, I was retired as a lieutenant for LA, and I worked with the SROs, and I worked with the school districts and across the city. And now I'm also the president of the National Association of School Resource Officers, that we represent over 30,000 members of school mental health workers and school resource officers. That our organization practices a lot of trainings across the forum, from SROs to restorative justice, all sorts of practices that we are implementing to school resource officers. The desire for me to be here today is, I came here on the ability to, as one of your school board members says, hey, could you come speak about the importance of school resource officers? There's nothing more important than a parent feeling that their student's feeling safe. I can tell you right now, there was a knee-jerk reaction in 2020 and issues that they pulled SROs across this country, and now it's completely reverting. From Los Angeles all the way to Minnesota, Minneapolis, to Boston, to New York, to San Diego, and making it full circle. I just came back from the World Police Summit, and I was speaking at in Dubai in regards to school resource officers. That's how important the conversation is to this world. The ability to make sure that we mentor, lead, and protect our students safely through graduation, so they can be contributing members, just like your mission said. I am here to speak on that subject. Has there been challenges in law enforcement? Absolutely. But it's an ecosystem that we have to create with law enforcement, educators, counselors, and principals. It's about the ecosystem. Not one thing is more important than anything, but it's creating an ecosystem where the education process can continue to happen. My desire is to see that you guys move in that direction. I'm also committed to giving you guys some funds for some training for your SRO, because I know how funds, and it's so interesting to be in a little school district because I'm so used to these huge places. But I go, look, the magic is happening here, where people are getting involved, because the education process doesn't matter if you're 500,000 students in LA to a few thousand students here. It's that important to everybody. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Shannon, do you have any other comments?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you both. All right, sticking down the list, our student school board representatives remaining, Victoria and Tori.
Just to give you our May recap for the district.
Our elementary school, so 4th grade held their final elementary school program on Friday, May 9. Our JK students, the class of 2037, had their spring program Friday, May 16th. And then the annual Dweebs concert is this Wednesday, and is an outdoor classroom at 6 p.m. with food trucks and fun.
In the middle school, the 6th graders traveled to BizTown for their real-life simulation of running a business and running a town, learning all about money and budgeting. Middle school track wrapped up, and we now opened it up to 6th grade students this year, and they all had a lot of fun competing. The walk, bike, and roller school day happened last week on May 8th, or 2 weeks ago. And then they celebrated their April and March students of the month. And then also 4th grade orientation in the middle school happened today as well.
The high school. So accounting class took their annual trip to Target Field, and a lot of them had a chance to go down to the field and work one-on-one with how their business marketing does. And then band and choir had their final concert on May 10th, which was a blast. The junior class had been going to the elementary school during advisory and playing with them at recess. Student council helped 6th graders at BizTown, and then the seniors finished their final week of high school last week with the senior picnic on Friday, and then we graduated yesterday.
And then high school sports are just wrapping up now. Track just finished their conference meet last week and are currently in Durand right now, competing at regionals. Girls soccer is finishing up their regular season this week, and they're playing Amory tonight. They got seeded 3rd in their section and will play Amory at home next Thursday for the first round. Boys golf took 5th place in conference, and August Lang and Blake Fries took honorable mention in conference as well. And then their regional meet is this Wednesday at the Pheasant Hills Golf Course. Softball, we finished our regular season 14-7, and we got seeded 3rd in our section. We should play tomorrow at home against St. Croix Central. Might get moved to Wednesday because of the weather, but we're hoping for tomorrow. And then baseball finished the regular season 10-12, and they got seeded 7th in their section, but they will be hosting their first round this Thursday against West Salem.
I just want to say thank you for the last 2 years. It has been a blast, and I've learned so much from coming to the school board meetings, hearing comments, hearing just what everyone does, and it was really fun. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Don't go anywhere. We got a little certificate for you. So we want to thank the two of you for your work that you put in all throughout the school year. So I want to shout these two out a little bit. Both student athletes, both taking full course loads, AP, college in the schools, involved in student council, music, drama. Just these two kids are really kind of the epitome of what we want our high school to be all about. It is not easy for many adults to come up here and speak in front of the board, and to have these two every month stand up here and do the things that they do was amazing. I appreciate the feedback of the experience you've had over the last 2 years. Not a lot of kids have the opportunity to do that. We're hoping you come back next year.
I will be back
We're going to
next
sign
year.
you up. So, on behalf of the board and the district, we have a certificate for each of you. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
There you go. All right. And round of applause for you, ladies.
All right, thank you. Thanks again. All right, next item, Old Market Johnson construction update.
Good evening, board members. Again, Eric Kivistow, Market and Johnson. We got
Robert Semple.
Juan Dirksel and Randy LaFay here with Market and Johnson as well. I'll kick it off here. We're going to give a couple high-level updates, the performing arts, the next steps on that, and then an update on construction for the stadium. You can see it's well underway, and then the elementary school, only 2 weeks away from starting that project. Starting with the PAC, again, on May 9th, here 2.5 weeks ago, we had bid pack 4. Unfortunately, reviewing the results, we were over budget. So last week and then this upcoming week, we'll be reviewing the bid results, gathering contractor feedback, collaboratively as a team between M&J, Wolf, and their consultants. Ultimately, the goal is to review value engineering and cost-saving options. We'll be compiling those over the next week. Ultimately, the goal will be to create a roadmap, so to speak, to get back on track here. Your next board meeting, I believe, is June 3rd. Come June 3rd, we'll be back with you guys presenting our plan, getting back in budget, staying on schedule here. It is important to note here, even with this minor setback or the setback, looking at the scheduling impacts, we're still slated to get the performing arts open, ready for fall of 2025 school year. Robert, Yvonne, anything to note on that?
Yeah, I just want to elaborate. We've been meeting, with Mark and Johnson and the district, just going through strategies. We had a couple of the work scopes primarily that came in higher than anticipated, but as a part of the value engineering and cost savings option, I guess we're just looking at everything. There's nothing that's really off the table, just to make sure we can get everything back down under budget. And like Eric said, we fully anticipate still being able to be open come fall of next school year, or 2025.
I guess I'll let you.
Yeah, I can just go. So not a lot of design updates on the other two projects. I've got some updated renderings of the playgrounds. It's something we've talked about the last couple of times we were here. It was with through another vendor. And I believe a PO has been issued, but we worked through the design with Pam and Shannon and the POC and came up with, we have a pre-K through first grade and then second through fourth, I believe, option. This first one is for the younger kids. And then this second option here is for the older elementary school kids. So just kind of an exciting update on what they're going to be getting at the playgrounds. And then if you want to talk schedule.
So elementary school, just the other two projects, the elementary school, again, the GMP is locked in. You can see the budgets and where the bid came, so that is the GMP, we call it. Construction start June 3rd or June 4th. The staff is in this building June 3rd, half the day, getting packed up, ready to go home for the summer. So our plan is to start taking ceilings down, the bulk of the demo on June 4th. With that, right after, it's heavy MEP, so a lot of fire suppression, HVAC, ductwork, VAVs, things of that nature. Just wanted to focus on the bottom line there. I know your open house day of August 21st is very important. Younger students, new to school, making sure they feel welcome to a new space. And then obviously school start of August 27th. Right now it's smaller, but we're still projecting substantial completion of August 2nd, giving us a healthy 2.5 weeks for punch list, making sure all the kinks are ironed out. So feeling really good about the elementary school. The stadium, as you guys drove in, you can see we're well underway. First portion is to get the new storm sewer into the new stadium. With that, just touching on some cool milestones, things that you actually can see here in the next 4 weeks. The next big thing you'll see is the scoreboard going up. That's going to happen the last week in June. Beautiful scoreboard that'll be. After that, asphalt paving. That'll be right before the 4th of July. At least that's how we're tracking right now. A really key milestone is the sod. We're not touching the whole football field, but portions of it. We want to give the sod as much time to grow for the first home football game of August 23rd. So right now it says 7-8, so even in the last week we were able to gain some traction. We're about a week and a half ahead of that with sod. Every day it helps at the end of the day. And then next exciting milestone will be the track surfacing, slated for that first week in August. You usually see some cool changes as that progresses. Very high level, but elementary school or PAC, any questions on upcoming events, milestones, anything of that nature? Anything to add? No, thanks. That's all we have. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming in, guys. See you in 2 days. All right, we'll go to item 5, Spartan Spotlight, Elementary Career Day.
You guys have a couple hours?
Yes.
So we have, I'm Nancy Anderson, I teach 2nd grade.
And I'm Heidi Olson, and I teach kindergarten.
And we had our 20+ career fair this year. We took a couple years off. 4th graders made some signs welcoming the presenters to our school. Back in, we thought, like 2002, when we moved to the new school, the career fair started. So Heidi and I were both around for that beginning. Marilee Savage, our guidance counselor at the time, started it as part of the counseling program. And the counselors today shared, or this past week shared with me, that it's one of their pillars, domains, standards. So as a school counselor, they support the development of our students' academic, career, and social-emotional development. So here's where the career fair comes in. But besides just that, it gives students leadership opportunities. So here are our student council members, or some of our student council memberships that helped that day do touring. They helped the presenters to their classrooms. They had to practice. And
You had to go ahead and set up like the sign. They had little signs on each door for each presenter welcoming them into the classroom. So they came around and put those up.
took it very seriously and
Yes.
did an amazing job. And then last but not least, a huge part of our strategic plan at the elementary, supporting community engagement. So I think Heidi will touch on later the overwhelming response we got, not knowing, after not having it for a couple years. So another part is the 16 career clusters that we introduced, obviously between JK and 4th grade at the elementary, different opportunities for the kids. So KN1, JK and KN1, kind of exposing the kids to the different careers. I know in 2nd grade, Julie Fretz does like a headbands game, exposing them and teaching them like they have to give the riddle of the clues of what career and then the jobs. And then we talk about doing a little research about goods, services, needs, wants, and bring it into the classroom too. So here are the 16 career clusters that go home, and we don't necessarily make sure we have every career because we were just hoping to get enough presenters for every room, which
Yeah.
worked out really well. Heidi, go back one once.
Oh, yeah,
Our picture right here, just, I think it might come later too, but one of the first grade rooms had a federal air marshal. So that was pretty.
Yep.
Second grade, federal air marshal, the air marshal ranked a little higher. And then,
So when we first met, we haven't done this since 2019, I think was the last time that we did it. So we were a little concerned about were we gonna get enough volunteers to come forward to join us on this day. And the sheets were coming in a little bit slowly. And then we sat down on the day that we met to come up with this little grid of what we were gonna do at each grade level. And we were pleasantly surprised that we had more than enough people volunteer to come and join us on that day. And we even had to have a few that came at different times, like they didn't come on career day, but they filled in at other times. Because we didn't want to turn anybody away. We wanted to make sure that everybody that said that they wanted to be a part of that day was able to do so. We had 22 classrooms participating. We had 27 stations, so 27 different presenters. We had a couple of former students in there. And then we had about, 6 community places. So Pizza Planet, SMC, State Farm, RCU, OSI, and GTK Towing. And it was just interesting. There was just a huge variety, and the kids were super excited about this, but we had like x-ray techs, zookeepers, Burnix vending, servers, college instructor, Pizza Planet, these ones I already said, a nurse, corrections probation officer, medical examiner, solar installer, physical therapist, dental, I don't know, CAD, CAM, I don't know what that means, but a dental.
he was awesome. The kid said he made molds.
She had him.
His job was making molds. He wasn't in second grade or kindergarten, but.
A nurse anesthetist. I did. I was gonna stumble over my words there. A tower tech, climber.
Cell phone tower, once again, rated above second grade teacher too.
Yeah, there was just such a variety and super interesting. And it was kind of cool sometimes because, you know, little kids sometimes they think zookeeper, oh, zookeeper, wouldn't that be an awesome job? And it is, it's an awesome job. But they found out that there's very little time that the zookeeper actually spends with the animals. A lot of their time is like creating their diet or cleaning up the waste. And so it was just kind of funny how they were like in shock that she just didn't spend an enormous amount of time there. So it was wonderful. And the other cool thing was kids that had their parents come in. I mean, they are just so excited and feel so special. And a lot of them got to stand up next to their parent as they presented. And
Adam's son came in at an alternative time, and we invited the third grade class that had his son, so that's Caroline and Connor with their dad. So they were, needless to say, more than excited to have their parents in the building, let alone in the room.
yes.
And fun for the parents to talk.
Yes, it is.
Fun for us.
And for them to get that experience of what it's like being up in a classroom full of, 20 to 25 kiddos. And then this is just some of the feedback that we got, some of the things that kids said. Like learning about bones, didn't even know what insurance was. We should really have insurance with State Farm.
Brian Brady, if you know him, he's a good plug there.
My truck is like my office. I do all my work right in my truck. That was about a mom that was just making reference about that's her office, is her truck, and going around from business to business. I want to work where my mom works because it sounds awesome. And then I did have one of my students, I forgot to mention when we were doing this, Barker's server and managers came in, and each of the kids got a little kids menu to take home. And so one of the families took their kids out to eat after that, came home, and they went to eat at Barker's, and she came the next day and said, my mom said the burgers at Barker's was really good. So they got some business.
And Scott came, I don't know if he did it this year, but Scott from Pizza Planet came a few years ago and brought dough and showed the kids the dough and all that. And somebody said, I didn't even know that guy worked there, but he owns it. Like, so excited. So fun to see things in our community. Fun to see the people behind the scenes in our community.
And then these are just, I'll just kind of go through, it just shows you some of the pictures of the presenters and then the kids, some of the, with the kids in action too.
And we ask kind of as guidelines, like if you have a uniform, bring a uniform. If you have any tools, equipment, how is school important for your career, those kinds of things. So I think if a presenter maybe didn't bring something, if they came back, they'd be like, that kind of hooks the kids.
Yes.
So you'll see a variety of different, like Smartboard, lots of different jobs than we've had before. So it was fun to see all the different
I had a parent that even
Patience.
figured out after her first time through, she's like, I need to talk less, show the pictures, they want to see the animals, and then she had like stuffed animals of the animals that there are at the Minnesota Zoo, so she had like representation there, and that helped with their listening and their focus and things like that too, so.
Each presenter did about four 15-minute stations. Some of the feedback we got from staff and students was, we want more, which we have done more in the past, and more became a little too much, or a little more time in between, and they didn't want to miss out because each group got to see 4 presenters and some grades had 5, so they felt like they missed out on that one. So we're always looking for change and feedback, but staff overall really enjoyed it, having it back, and the kids were super respectful. I don't know, Pam, if you got feedback in the office as people checked out, but Selena and Kristen said they were really proud of the class.
They were so just optimistic about kids and the respect and the questions and just the energy was really awesome.
Yeah. So this will be linked, I think, to Alicia, right? So if they want to learn more.
Yeah.
And the committee is not just Heidi and I. We have a rep from each grade, K1, 2, 3, 4, and then Julie and Bobby are counselors, and then Mindy Shoup helped us with the student council and the signage. So not just us. But
And then afterwards too, I don't know if you guys did, but kindergarten we made big thank you cards for the kids with a picture. If we took a picture of the presenter and their child or the class, we put that on there, and then we had each of the kids sign it and send them a card to thank them too, so.
And it is hard. We did it right away, 8:30 to 9:30, and some of the teachers wanted it later in the day, but we took one for the team and had it during our prep as second grade teachers, because sometimes that's hard to lose prep. So we definitely could do it later in the day next year. But overall, do you guys have any questions or comments? Or it's good. It's good. Happy it's back. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, reports. We'll start with the listening session. Who was here for that?
I was here. There was something.
Okay. Okay, superintendent report. Shannon.
I do. I think Alicia's gonna pull it up for me. Perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to give kind of an overview of where we are at this point in the year with our strategic plan. Kind of hard to believe we're going to come upon the end of year 1. The year kind of flew by. Again, kind of give an overview of where we are, look at some of the action steps, and kind of talk about where we go really between kind of here and August. So
There's a clicker up there if you want it. And would you like closer to the smart board zone? Or
Yeah.
figure it out. Okay. All right, so every time I talk about the strategic plan, I always have this slide up just as a good reminder for the guiding question that we were using, again, a year ago, as we brought lots of stakeholders together to kind of talk about what do we want our 5-year roadmap to look like? Where are we right now as a district? Where do we want to be 5 years from now? And basically, what are the action steps for us to be able to get there? So that question was, how do we ensure the Somerset School District prepares students for an ever-changing world? Again, mission, core values, and learner outcomes. Mission, we should probably know by heart at this point because we hear it a lot. Core values of these are the things that we believe in, and by the time kids walk across that stage, these are the 2 goals that we'd like to be able to say that every kid in Somerset has the skills to be able to do these 2 things by the time they leave us. Again, looking at our 4 pillars, on our website, there's a much bigger graphic of what goes into each of these, but making a commitment throughout the next 4 years of what we're going to do for students, what we'll do for staff, what we do for our operations, and how we bring our community into the mix of the things that we do here every day. Again, just kind of a reminder, so again, a year ago, bringing together a key stakeholder community group, a diverse group of 42 people over the course of 2 meetings in March and May, looking at a whole bunch of data collected from staff, students, parents, and community members, really kind of looking at, again, what are going to be the big focus areas and start to think about what are going to be the themes that we're going to develop for our strategic plan. So through the work of that group, by the end of that second meeting, giving the admin team some really good focus for where do we need to put our energy. I know it's really hard to read, obviously, what's on here, but you can see These dots gave us kind of that first layer of where we want to spend our attention, because that means the people in that key stakeholder group felt like, yep, this is something that I really want the district to pay attention to, think about, write an action step around. And then kind of phase 2 was looking at some of the extraneous things that are connected to those, and see if there are spaces to infuse some of those things into our plan. So from all of that work came the initial draft. So May 30th, an email was sent to all of the members of that key stakeholder group asking for feedback. So this was the document that all 42 of those people received, asking for feedback. What do you see? Does anything on here not represent something that we talked about? Is there something missing that you want to see back in the plan that maybe you didn't get on there? The feedback that I received from that group was the 4 things that you see there in yellow. Everything else, by all accounts of basically not hearing any additional feedback, people were comfortable with. I also sent the same document to all of our staff as well, asking for their feedback. Again, anything on here that you have a question about, something that's maybe missing, no feedback from staff as well. Eventually bringing it to the board for a first and second reading. No feedback given from the board, kind of the thumbs up, and then officially it was voted and approved by the board last June. And since then, really, we kind of took it and ran, and we've been working through our action steps at that point. So this is going to look fairly similar to the 2 updates that I've given so far this year, particularly the one that I gave in January. And the idea really is just to kind of give you an update of where we are. Obviously, the year is not finished yet, so the action steps aren't completely done. But throughout the year, as we're collecting evidence and having a lot of conversations in the district about what do these action steps mean, what do they look like, and how do they help us get to where we want to be, specifically end of the year. But again, kind of looking out in the future 5 years from now. So what you see in yellow are the 3 specific action steps underneath the student pillar that we were working on for this school year. And I want to kind of point your fingers to a little bit here, looking at enhancing restorative mindfulness and character development experiences. So these are many of the same things that if you've looked at my presentation or listened to it when I did it in January, very similar pieces of evidence. These 3 things are a little bit tricky to kind of keep gathering evidence for, because they are a carryover from our previous strategic plan, and they really are now infused in terms of how we do business here. They aren't kind of new things that we keep checklisting. These are things that are infused into our classrooms, our advisory, again, responsive classroom in the elementary, top 20 in the middle school, character counts at the high school, how we go about navigating when students make mistakes, those kinds of things. And so with restorative practices in particular, that one that typically generates kind of a what is it and what is it not. So I've asked Kathy Cranston to come in today, and I see she's here, fantastic, just to kind of give the board an overview for some learning of what are restorative practices. Catherine has been our main trainer that we've used over the last 6 years now. So she's going to provide a little bit of information for the board tonight about what this is, what it isn't, and kind of give us all of her expertise of all things restorative practices. So Catherine, you are up.
All right. So just a little background.
I don't think you'll need this.
No. I live across the street, so I don't. I always say I have some skin in the game here. My grandkids all go here too, and I was on the school board for over 12 years here, also. But my history with restorative practices is that I was a teacher in North St. Paul for 30 years. And when you say the resource officers, man, we were involved with resource officers all the time. And so how I got involved with restorative practices is that I was just looking for a way to make sure that all the kids in my classroom felt like they belonged. And I had kids from all socioeconomics. I mean, the last year I taught in 21, I had 36 kids in my 4th grade class, and 4 of them were what I would consider white middle class. The rest were every other culture, size, shape, color, socioeconomic. And when I started there, 25 years earlier, my class was not that way. And so over the years, I just wanted to learn how to communicate with everybody, regardless of their culture. And that's when I went looking for a way to communicate with my kids that they knew they belonged. And that's when I found this thing called restorative practices. Now, it is not a curriculum. You know how it says here, responsive classroom? That's a curriculum that you buy and you train your teachers. Same with character counts, and those are curriculums. Restorative practices is not a curriculum. It's a mindset. And it's just a different way of looking at relationships and kids and human beings. And it is not a curriculum that you buy, okay? It had criminal justice, when you said criminal justice and restorative justice, that is different than restorative practices in that criminal justice, and jump in here because you guys might be the experts here. Crime or harm has happened and it's a reactive. You're using restorative justice and all those, it's reactive, okay? In the schools, we call it restorative practices because it's proactive. We're trying to get kids to get along, to feel like they belong in school, and we're trying to be proactive in building community so that when things go wrong, it's a lot easier to deal with them. So it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's proactive versus reactive. So I don't want you to get those two mixed up. But what I did was I started doing these little strategies in my own little classroom. And the funny thing is, Mrs. Philippi taught across the hall from me. And do you remember those days? And honestly, we just started with one strategy, one little strategy. And responsive classroom uses that strategy. It's called circles. And when you say it's so embedded already, 1 hour ago, right now, I was sitting in my pool with my kindergarten. Oh, he's first grade this year. Yeah, my grandson, and he said, "Oh, we had a circle today, Nana." And I said, "Well, what were the questions?" And he said, "Well, the first question was, what's something you want to share that you did over the weekend?" And I said, "Well, what did you tell him?" And he said, "Well, I told him I had a soccer game." And then he told me what a bunch of other kids in his class did over the weekend. Somebody had a birthday party. Somebody else did something else. And so I even knew a little bit about some kids in his class, and he knew what all of the kids in his class did over the weekend. That's the strategy we started with, and they're called talking circles. Restorative practices, that is the basic premise. If I walk into school and I don't see circles, and they say they're restorative, I'm like, nope, nope. And circles are used in kindergarten and preschool. They're used, Zach uses them. Our hockey program uses them all the time. I'm in locker rooms all the time. We use those circles, those talking circles, all over. And we even use them at the high school. And in high school, we use them a little bit more academically. Like, here's an example. You teach a class on, I was in Dawn Pier's room, eighth grade, and she was doing something with math. And then after the class was over, we had 3 questions. And the first question, we just stood up and we just did them around. And the first question was, what's one thing, tell me one word you remember from that lesson. And the kids just go around and share. The second question was, what's one thing that you want to remember? And they go around and they share. And the last question is, what's one thing you're still wondering about? And everybody goes around. So at high school, circle might look a little different, but you see it's still an easy question, a medium question, and a hard question. In kindergarten, a hard question can be, what's your name? I'm not kidding. I did a circle once with kindergartners and I got nothing. They couldn't even tell me their name. So I had to go back and I put a green triangle in front of each one of them and I said, oh, I see green triangles everywhere. Let's start. There's a talking piece and they go around and the question was, what color is the triangle sitting on the floor in front of you? And I got all answers that way. So then my next question was, what's your name? And they got it. And then my third question was, how old are you? That's it. So the premise of a circle is the premise of all that you want to do in your classrooms. We also do them, if you get really good at them, you can use them to solve problems if you have an issue in your classroom. But circles is one thing. When you hear restorative practices. And in our high school here, we even did last year, we did one monthly staff meeting in circle using that process So like the principal would give me the topic that he wanted to teach in that, and then we did it in circle. The middle school, I mostly went around and did academic circles, and in the elementary, we did a lot of talking circles. So that is a main part of restorative practices, okay? There's one other part that is called a restorative chat. And that is a little bit more, if there is an issue, and there's 5 questions you always ask a kid. Tell me what happened. Tell me who was affected by this. What do you think about that now? And then the last question is always, how do we fix it? And I mean, if anybody's had any law enforcement training or any counseling or teaching, those are just premises. So those are the things that I'm working on with the schools here. Prior, when I was in North St. Paul, when we started in our little classroom, it got so that pretty soon the whole hallway was doing it. Pretty soon the whole school was doing it. Pretty soon I'm asked and I'm going around to all different schools, and pretty soon now I'm doing them in Detroit, and I'm doing them in Utica, and I'm doing them in Burnsville, and so pretty soon, the last 2 years in my district, I was the restorative practices coach. And so that's why when I started doing it here, I had experience with other than just my own little school. So this is probably my favorite thing that I got to do. In North St. Paul, I did 106 bus drivers, and I taught them how to do circles, and I taught them how to do restorative chats. And I've worked with about 4 different districts, and the Safeway bus drivers, tough nuts to crack. But they did. I did 6 sessions with them, and I think my favorite line, and I offered to and I rode on some rides with them too. And my favorite line was this one driver. He just said, "What I want from you is I want you to teach me how to talk to my kids better. Just to use restorative language instead of the language that he grew up with. He knew he could do better." And so that's basically what I did with the bus drivers, teaching them how to make eye contact, how to use a kid's name every day, how to find out one thing about each kid and then talk about that one thing. It's called building community. But it has to be on purpose. Because here's what I found. They greet the kid every day. They say, "Hi, good morning." What's missing from that? Their name. Yep. I found that 80% of those drivers thought they were greeting kids every day, but they didn't greet them by name. So pretty soon then, my assignment was to know every name. The next week, the assignment was to know something about each kid. One little thing about each kid. And then say, "Good morning, so-and-so, how was soccer last night?" Dave Parnell is one of the drivers, and he knew not only every kid's name, he knew where they lived, he knew their grandmas and their grandpas, and he knows everything about every single kid. How many behavioral referral write-ups do you think Dave Parnell has? 0. Because he knows the kids and they know him. And so that is a restorative practice. Building community, knowing your kids, greeting them by name. Teachers, what do we expect? We expect you to be in the hallway, greeting those kids by name every single morning. Why would bus drivers be any different? So that's a restorative practice. And I've done a lot of work with your para support staff. And I tell you what, bus drivers and para support staff are just like this. I mean, I had Ms. Abbott, okay? You know what she said to me? In fact, I do your new orientation for new teachers every August, and she takes it every year. How many years has she been here? 3, 4, 5? I mean, yeah. Every year she's in the orientation. And I'm like, "What are you doing here again, Jody?" "I just like it," she said. "I learn something new every time," and she just comes. Because she said it's so fun to sit in and learn from somebody that's gonna make me better at my job. It's not a curriculum, it's a mindset. And so, all the support staff, and so that's pretty cool to be able to do. So I've been in the elementary building, the middle school, I've even worked with the grounds guys, the bus drivers. It's just a mindset on belonging and making sure that we all do everything we can to make sure that we know as many kids' names, and we want everybody to have that sense of belonging. That's really what it is. And I just don't want you to think it's all about criminal justice and making people that are in trouble, and it's none of that. Not at all what we're doing in Somerset. We're doing proactive work and trying to make sure that everybody feels like they belong here. Any questions? That couldn't have been that good. But feel free to email me or call me, or if you, I was gonna have my cards and I forgot, I just got out of the pool.
Wow.
So
I have
if you
a
have,
question.
yeah, I'd love to.
So to my comment about like if we've been chipping away with our kids, and we know our kids are super respectful at home because they have to be, they don't uphold that standard when we're not around. But you know, how do parents help be part of that and know what be more consistent, so whatever the teachers are teaching to have better behavior in the classroom so more learning can happen.
Do you want to know my idea for that? Because I think maybe before your time, I thought that that I should put on a little thing for parents to come, and here's how talking circles work.
Year 2 action step, there we go.
And especially with restorative chats, because they are magical with children, magical. People see me doing it. I just did one at the hockey rink the other day, and the kid pushed another kid or something, and the mom was all upset. And I go, you stand over there, I said to mom, and watch. And I just said, tell me what happened, and I had the kids solve the problem, and the mom's over there. And I said, we good, we good? And the kids fist pumped, and off they went. And the mom just looked at me, she goes, what was that? It's magical.
Asking questions.
Yeah, it's just about asking questions and letting them solve their own issues, because they're smart. But I thought that should be a parent thing, that we could offer parents and teach them, and I would teach it in circle. And then we would do the learn and role model some restorative chat.
It'd be fun if you had to where they could bring their kids like the next, because I think that's another, it's like teaching the kids and parents to talk. This is much jar the teacher, right, and more we agree with that.
So here's what I do
Perspective
then.
of like
Part
share
two,
talk.
Part 2 is you bring your kid and bring an issue.
Yeah.
And I will help you facilitate that. I do that with teachers all the time. Because repairing the harm or helping the kid solve the issue doesn't have to be immediate.
You're on camera. There.
Doesn't have to be in the moment. In fact, sometimes we're better the next day because we've calmed down. We've had a little bit of time to think about it. But, so what I would say is, we'll come back next week, bring your child and bring an issue. And then we facilitate it together. It is magical.
The restorative practice works because it's a safe space. That's the number one thing. It's a safe space. And that's so important to know.
Any other questions?
That was good information, I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Back to the pool.
So that kind of actually moves perfectly into the next action step, looking at gaining student voice, really kind of focusing on that belonging component of the culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for all kids. So the last time I was here, I was talking about a survey that was given to students, so we've done this twice now. If you want to click on elementary school for me, give you an insight here of the questions that were asked of our students, because their voice is obviously kind of the main driver here of really wanting to get a good, clear picture of their feelings, their thoughts about how are things going at school every day, how are things going in the classroom. So you may have to, oh, there we go. So elementary school, so the questions were, my teachers care about me, there are adults in the building that will help me, I feel safe at school, I have friends at school, I see kind behavior at school, adults working at the school treat all students with respect, I like my school, I feel listened to at school, I have the chance to help decide things at school, such as activities, parties, classroom rules, etc., and I share what I learn at school with someone at home. So at this point then, staff will gather up this information. Pam, and I don't want to speak for her, but I know they go through and work through the data from a classroom lens, looking at, as a classroom, what is that data telling us about what students are saying, what's happening in their classroom. If you want to go to middle school for me, you'll see a very similar theme. I have friends at school, I feel safe, my teachers care about me, I can talk to a teacher or other adult at the school about something that is bothering me. I regularly attend school-sponsored events such as dances, sporting events, etc. I see kind behavior at school. I feel supported and respected in my classrooms. There are lots of chances for students at the school to get involved in sports, clubs, other activities, etc. School rules are applied equally to all students. I sometimes stay at home because I don't feel safe at the school. My teachers help me understand what I need to learn and how to be successful in my studies. I feel involved in my school, and what I learn at school helps me outside of school. So same idea, staff at the middle school get the information, start going through what is the data telling us, and then creating action steps of how do we respond to the data that our kids are giving us. High school, I lost it here. Again, you'll see very similar theme. I'm connected to at least one adult at school. I regularly attend school-sponsored events. I feel safe at school. I'm involved in sports, clubs, etc. Adults at this school treat all students respectfully. My classmates respect one another. I feel like everyone at my school encourages me to stay in school, graduate, and go on to college or training. I'm proud to be a Somerset Spartan. My teachers help me understand what I need to learn and how to be successful in my studies. I have opportunities to help decide things like how I show my learning in my class activities. And my school provides instructional materials, textbooks, handouts, etc. that reflect my cultural background, ethnicity, and identity. So after going through that specifically 2 times in a year, obviously from survey 1 to survey 2, we're looking at what has happened in between there to try to impact some of the areas that maybe came up low. What are some things that will help inform some action steps even for next year as well when we specifically look at the culture that's happening in our buildings, kind of what you were referring to earlier. The climate and overall that whole sense of belonging of does every kid on our campus feel like they belong on our campus. The last part here, so the equity audit. So this has been a massive task this year with the, I would say, luck, and I'll use that term a little bit loosely, of the district being required to complete all 3 of these equity audits from the Department of Instruction all this year. These were things that we did not have a choice. They were not optional. It did work nicely into our plan because we've been able to use this data a variety of ways. We don't even have all the data back yet. So I'll start with the civil rights compliance review. So that's something, as I mentioned before, every district has to participate in every 9 years. So we just had our exit meeting with DPI last week, and they gave us about a 50-page document summarizing all of our data that we submitted. And then they provide us, I would say, a pseudo improvement plan after coming to the district, interviewing staff, interviewing students, and looking at all the data and artifacts like board policies and those kinds of things. What are some things that you have the next year to improve on? And really good things, I would say fairly easy things like increasing our signage for handicap accessible doors, some things like that. But also getting into some other components building by building just to be better at what we're doing. The civil rights data collection, so that's something that will happen every 2 years, although I just got an email today that every district will be required to do it next year, even if you did it this year. So we'll have the opportunity to do it 2 years in a row. Where we, again, I know I can hear you 3 in the back like, whew, because these things are a ton of work and time to get all the artifacts and things together that they require. We don't have any of the data back from that yet in terms of the analysis, so we'll wait for that. And then the last one is what they call a self-evaluation of the status of non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunity. So this is something districts do every 5 years. You have a very specific template from the Department of Instruction that you have to follow in terms of the items that they tell you that you must self-evaluate and then write a report, which I will be bringing to the board most likely in June. Basically outlining, after going through, again, it's a ton of board policy procedures that we have across our buildings to ensure equity for all students. Looking at that self-reflection and basically giving yourself a rating of how are we doing, what are some areas of improvement based on that rubric that DPI gives us. So that is due May 30th, so that has been a huge task for me these last couple weeks. More to come. Again, we don't have all the data back yet and kind of all the information, but the compliance review, because that is something that we have access to at some point this summer, that's something I'll bring in front of the board. We have not had enough time to kind of filter through all 50 pages yet, so we want to make a little sense of it first, but eventually all of this will be something we'll bring back to the board to be able to review and have some discussion about. All right, moving on to...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So 1.4 talks about, it's the surveys that went to 3 schools. So were parents given these surveys in advance, or does it just go right to the kids?
Went right to the students.
All right, why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Parents don't get a chance to review those in advance?
So that typically hasn't been our practice for surveys of this nature. We consider this kind of the day-to-day operations of just the school buildings. That hasn't been our practice.
I mean, it bothers me when, my child says they filled out a survey and I don't even know what questions were on it.
Sure.
Unless we ask, and I think that needs to change.
So
Okay.
that's why we'll talk with this policy, that 2416.
Right.
About what questions are on there, certain questions would, then bring it to parents' attention, but if they're not, then it just.
So maybe circle back to that
Yep,
at
if that's
the
all right.
policy.
When we talk about policy. 2416.
Okay, so looking at staff, so 2 action steps here. I spoke about the rounding that we did the last time that we were here. The admin team has been working through themes and trends and looking at some action steps that we've already been able to put into action, some that are looking at a little more long-term for next school year, but again, yielded really great information in terms of where staff are at. And then the district wellness team, so a big shout out to our staff members across the district that are really digging into having this wellness team make some impact across the district. I outlined here a couple things that they've been responsible for. A campus pajama day to promote Sleep Awareness Week, which I will tell you as educators, sleep is an important thing, sleep is a good thing. We want our adults to be healthy, just like we preach to our kids about the importance of sleep. So having some good information about that. Distributing some yoga cards in the buildings to promote overall wellness. Having infused water in our buildings 1 time a week now, which is awesome. I know we get super excited about it here. Again, to promote the idea of just, again, overall wellness and staying hydrated and drinking water. And then a heavy collaboration with our Walk, Run, and Roll to School Day. If you had the opportunity to be on campus that morning, even driving through campus, it was crazy in a good way with so many families and kids participating, which was awesome. And we hope to do a few more things like that too. So these were just some new things that popped up from the last time I was here. I know they're having a lot of good discussions of being able to make even bigger impact, but over the course of this year, they've been able to move the needle, which is great. Looking at operations, so you're hearing a lot of information, of course, about our referendum, just another update tonight. I know the board, you get my weekly update every week about the things that are happening there, the conversations I'm involved in on a weekly basis. Bruce and Ian are also kind of the direct board, I would say, liaisons for the different things that have been happening with the referendum. Bruce was on a big meeting with me today, which has been really helpful. So obviously you can physically see there's a lot happening in the stadium, and as you heard Wold and Market Johnson talk about today, as soon as school is done, those other 2 projects are going to get moving pretty fast and furious. Looking at sustainable compensation plans, so we're in the process right now of getting ready to close out 23-24. The goal of being able to present some compensation recommendations to the board in June or July. We have some pretty important components of 23-24 that we want to officially be able to close out before we feel comfortable bringing forward a compensation recommendation. And then continue to also monitor what does compensation and benefits look like in districts around us to make sure that we're competitive to the best of our ability and to be able to retain and recruit staff as well. And then the last one, developing strategies for increasing district revenues. So you've heard us talk a little bit about continuing to research options for on-site childcare, continuing to research options about our virtual program. A survey will be sent next week to any family that lives here but is open enrolled out to try to gather some more feedback of kind of the why and what are some things that maybe could happen in the district potentially to get families back. Specifically families that were maybe here and left. We know it's a little bit trickier to get families to come that have never been here yet, but trying to get some data there. And also sending a different survey to our families that live in the district that are homeschooled. Again, to be able to just gather some more information about partnering and making sure families are aware of some of the things that they are entitled to as homeschool families in terms of accessing some of the services here, but again, just getting some more information to help inform some next steps. I've spoken before about an enrollment analysis and really kind of seeing where we are and where we think we might be in 3 to 5 years. And then looking at some different funds available to us. You heard Dave last meeting talk about Fund 80. That's become probably our biggest focus, and really getting creative about what we can try to funnel through that. And you'll hear more about that certainly as the summer comes along. And the last one was community. So action step of looking for more family involvement. So sending out a parent engagement survey. So that was sent out on the 15th. It's open until the 30th. So you have time, Corey, to be able to finish that up. As of today at about 5 o'clock, we had 250 respondents, which is great. So if you're someone listening that hasn't filled it out yet, I encourage you to make sure that you do that. Really good information already that I think will be helpful. And then continuing to promote and expand our volunteer opportunities. So you heard our 2 teachers here talk about Career Day, which was fantastic. The turnout was great. We put some flyers in the scoop. We've seen an increase in volunteers attending field trips, which is awesome. Really still kind of bouncing back from all the COVID stuff. Mock interviews continue to happen. I know those are happening in the middle school even now. We still have high school career speakers that are coming in, so always looking to get creative about ways to get people into our buildings. So with that said, kind of the next step with this is eventually closing out year 1. So the next time I come in front of you will really be a much more, I would say, comprehensive overview of where did we land with each of these action steps. Likely that's an August type thing. Our work as an admin team over the summer is then continuing to analyze what were we able to accomplish this year, what things do we maybe have to bring into the following year that might just be continuing things that we roll for the next 5 years, and where do we want to start looking at in terms of action steps for next year. So I feel good about where we are. We've been able to accomplish a lot in year 1. You know, a strategic plan is a big task for a district. Lots of work and I would say research and all kinds of things go into it if you want it to be an actual impactful plan. So I'm excited about bringing kind of year 1 to a close back to the board at some point this summer. Thank you. We must have lost the back to this somewhere.
Oh.
Any
Oh.
questions for?
You can leave it, I'll give it.
Got it, I got it.
For your next meeting is in August that you said you'd be bringing the next update. Can we make sure to link that just so people can see it?
Yep, so we'll link this right now.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we'll link it. Typically, like today, I was still working on this right until, but yeah, we'll link this probably before we go home. Actually, I can do it when I just sit down, but yep. And we'll put this on the website too.
As you link it, Alicia's been doing some really good things with putting, I don't know exactly how you do it, but you put something where it brings you to the place in the video where it happens.
Yep.
Oh, the minutes?
Yeah.
The minute, oh.
Or can you do that on the agenda now that after it gets linked? Can you do it on the agenda and put the video the minute where it starts?
Like for this specific topic, or are
Yeah.
you saying for anything?
I'm talking about your presentation.
This one, yeah.
Because if you're just reading the presentation,
Right.
you don't get all the information that Shannon communicates. So if you could also put, you know, the link in the video where it starts, that'd be great too. Thank you.
Yep.
You need on the agenda or the minutes?
Well, the agenda will be available publicly now. So now that we're doing it after it's happened.
She's hyperlinking the celebrations on the minutes. Can you hyperlink that video spot in the minutes? Would that be easier?
I can just do it in both.
Okay.
How about that?
Because I think
Easy
what you're
enough.
saying for this specific topic,
Yes.
getting both of those on the agenda. The
Yes,
minutes we can,
because
we can
those
do
are
too.
available
Yeah.
right away, and the
Yep.
minutes won't be available for like about a month.
All right, any questions on financial reports or enrollment report? Okay, moving on, item 7, board professional development discussion. I think, so we had the board goals attached to this, and I think, you know, just the reason to look at them was just to review kind of what we did last year as a board for our goals, and to start thinking about A, what we want to do for professional development as a board, and then B, also thinking about our board goals moving forward as a new board for the next school year. I think Shannon, you reached out to other districts about, in our CISA, about what they do for professional development.
I did, yes. I had CISA send out a survey, just asking, does your board engage in professional development? If so, what? Typically, how much do you allocate per year on board development? So as of today, out of the 40 CISA schools, 24 had responded. Is this what you're looking for? Maybe no. You want me to tell you that?
Yeah.
Okay. 24 had responded, so 21 of them said yes, they engage in some level of professional development. Of course, that looked different across every district. The allocation looked vastly different across every district, from $1,000 all the way to $20,000. And the 3 districts that said no, and then kind of a caveat of, but some years we have, some years we haven't, so it was inconsistent enough where they didn't want to say, yes, we do it every year, but we may do it one year and we don't do it the next, kind of a thing. So
we've done it pretty much every year since I've been a part of it at some aspect, and it's for us to think about and discuss as a board. I think it's, again, I'll bring it back to our next work session with some ideas of what people think. You know, obviously we had something scheduled previous to our last board. We had ongoing board development, and established a board development schedule, which is why we had something scheduled. But I think we need to look at that going forward as a whole board, what we want to do, and how to keep developing as a board and see what how this board wants to function.
So when do we get to work on the board goals and board goals?
At a board development session, I think. I mean, that's typically how we've done it. We've all got together and discussed, the goals we want to set forth moving forward with help of either a third party or, we've had WASB in here for it. We had the principal we did some book studies previously. I think we went to Kathy Francis Pool one time, board development session.
It's a separate retreat, separate from
Yeah.
a meeting, just to focus on that.
Yep, yeah, to focus on the goals of how we want to do things. I think it's what we did before, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are you thinking?
I have lots of ideas. I mean, I don't know if we need to, WASB would be a good choice, I think, for a third party. I'm interested in hearing
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? And again, I think we'll bring back to the work session and then try to set up something. Just knowing that we'll want to put something together in July, and it's usually tough to find openings in the summer. So, and then if we choose to reach out to WASB or choose to reach out to somebody to try to get them set up and scheduled so that we can, as a whole board, let's say, just be prepared to talk about it next meeting. I think it was just to kind of get everybody's radar.
Can we maybe put together a list of options? People can look at.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe if you get any responses, Shannon, about what other people are doing on that survey, if they say.
it wasn't specific about what necessarily, but I
personally wouldn't know where to start looking for different options. You know what I mean? It might make it easier to discuss.
Sure.
And cost with those options too. Something to consider.
Okay. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there to get started.
Can I just put, are you doing that? Or am I doing that?
Yeah, I'll get the options.
Okay.
Well,
Come
we
up
all,
together.
we all.
Yeah, I think, we all should be looking into
And the
different
next,
things.
the next meeting is the discussion to establish when are we gonna do this, because again, we
Yeah.
typically do it outside of
Are we gonna-
it's a scheduled board meeting, but it's outside, it's a retreat to
Yeah.
finalize our goals and
be prepared for the next school year, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, that's why I'm, yes.
So
I'm
next
doing this.
meeting, we decide when are we gonna do that, and then by that meeting, we all come with ideas and do your research and,
Love that.
and again, it's a public meeting, but we don't,
Yeah, and again, we can bring it up next time and then again, not make a motion on it until, you know, the actual meeting in June, you know, so we have July or August.
So the development meeting is where we're gonna decide how we're gonna do the development?
No. Okay. So next meeting,
Yep.
our work session meeting
Yep.
on June 3rd,
yep.
we'll come up with board development options, we'll come back with,
And set a date.
and then, no.
Might not be able to set a date.
No, probably just set a date. We'll want to come up with, okay, we have WASB, or we have Pritzl, or we have whoever.
Sure.
And these are the costs of each of those, or hey, let's reach out to find costs for these options, or I'd be open to these, because I want to make sure everyone's going to show up to this board development. And if you can't all agree on it, then we might just have to do it without.
But part of that has been essentially using a consultant to establish our goals, just like they did with the strategic plan, right? We all have ideas on where do we go as a board in the next year. So we need to, like, somebody has to facilitate the discussion to narrow it down to our top 3 goals. Right? Isn't that what we've done?
We can't do it with just us.
Well, we can try. I mean, historically, that's, Kathy Cranston, a perfect example. Like, she just leads the discussion and helps it flow. I've always found that when someone else that's removed from us is helping flow that discussion, that's all it is. They're not injecting anything, they're just.
Right.
I don't know, I think throw 3 pizzas out here, we'll hammer it out. How's that sound? That works. It's cost effective for our taxpayers.
Well, there's cost effective, I agree completely, but then there's also, I think, the efficiency piece. So, next meeting, let's talk about it. We can decide.
And then, if our board goals, we come up and develop more board development of what we want to do, then I think we'll discuss it at that point as well.
Show up to the next meeting with your research and information,
Yep.
so that we can make a
Or what you,
decision.
what you'd like to see.
We're
If
not
you want to
showing up
have
there
pizzas
blind
on the
and talk
table,
about it.
if that's your idea, that's what you got. If you want to bring somebody in, then let's look at bringing somebody in.
Okay.
If you have someone you know who would want to facilitate, I mean, just anything, we're just trying to come up with options. And then I'll agree if it's something we want to bring in the WASB or clear as mud. All right.
It's better.
All right, here we go. All right, moving on. Policy update. So we went through these all last time. Do we want to, are there any ones we want to dig into again?
Well, I've got a list here. Most of them are ready to go. And Danny and Ian, if you want to open up that, all of you have access to that document, that Google Doc, where all the comments were written. But I believe number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are ready to go as is. Does anybody have a question about any of those?
I have a thought. I think that we should table these for approval until they're all cleaned up, linked to the agenda so the public can see them before any decisions are made, just in case anybody has a comment, thought, concern. And for the sake of transparency, I think those should be linked.
I'll second that.
Well, what?
Yeah, before we approve them, I think people should see what we're approving.
We talked about that before. They should be cleaned up on the agenda, hyperlinks. Because there's so many notes and stuff on there.
I think,
This came up like a while ago.
Well, the problem I'm trying to think out loud here. The problem that we had was Neola doesn't do anything until we approve them.
right.
So how do we approve them to have them updated? Like, they almost have to come back.
How we used to do it. I used to.
You
do
did,
it.
I know. Because really, we have to have 2 readings before they can even get approved for Neola to fix them.
Right.
So they really would have to come back a 3rd time for official approval.
Not if I take the documents and do that.
And that's just Neola's practice, that's just.
Neola doesn't make the changes until we, as a board, vote to approve what we want.
I mean, yeah, that was the hangup that we had. Because we talked about this 2 years ago, same thing, like, why are we?
Is it something Ed can do or no?
Is that what?
Something Ed can do.
Make the changes before they're approved?
I mean, like, he cleans it up when we're in the middle of the
Ed
policy
doesn't
meeting.
really actually do
Right,
it.
it goes to a whole different section of Neola.
For the official
Right.
edit. He edits them.
And they don't want to potentially, because this is
Have
the
to
other
do
part,
it
they don't want to
twice.
potentially have to go in more than once.
So how about if I create those documents, but before I create them, I would like to go through the list and make sure that what I'm creating is accurate. So do you agree that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are okay as we talked about in the first reading?
I just back up. I think it's crazy though, Laura, that you're gonna take this on and edit all. This is what we use Neola for. Like, we have an open discussion and we have it 2 times. The policies aren't, there's nothing hidden, there's nothing new. We talk about it. I don't know, I think
That's not
to
what
add
it's
another
about.
step to
What
have
she's
one.
getting at is being able to see it.
Oh, yeah, I agree, and but they're all there.
But what's there? I mean, it is for
Yes.
us, but,
Well, anybody can look up those policies, can't they?
but
They
not
can
with the
look up
revisions.
active policy.
Right, so they'd have to watch a board meeting or come to a board meeting. It's all in the minutes.
They can't see what we have on here for policy right now. The changes that were made, the selections that were made.
Although we did discuss them at the first reading.
Right, that's what I mean. We had that, we talked for almost an hour. And then I would say, as long as when they're edited, because once we vote, they edit them, and then they're live, because anybody can find them, right?
They're active.
And we found things that have been in error, and we bring it back and fix it. Because there's a human element there too. And I think that's where we landed, was that we had this open discussion, not once, but twice. I don't know, I don't agree. I don't think I don't think any board member should be taking on personally editing these. I don't think they should do that.
I agree with Matt and Laura. I thank you for the offer, but we do discuss them. Open meeting, we go through them.
I
don't think we need to.
I don't have a problem, if there's a way to link that Google Doc, as long as nobody can edit it. I don't care, people can see every one of our comments. Like, if it's a live link on here,
Is there a way to do that, Alicia?
again, as long as nobody can edit it, that's all.
You'd probably want to download it as a PDF, just to be, it's cleaner.
So it sounds workable, like a PDF document, and then.
There'd be a
click on it
link,
and you can
and
review.
somebody could see that right there, right? Before the meeting. Then they could see who commented on what.
Not if it's a PDF,
Not on a
the-
PDF.
You
But
won't be able to
but
see
you
the
could have,
comments.
but you could at least have the updated policy.
You could see what Neola is recommending as an addition, and you could see what Neola is recommending as a deletion. That is all you'd be able to see, I believe. Is that correct, Alicia?
Unless you want I can do what you all decide. So if you want to link this as it is right now in a Google Doc, then I can do that. If you want it as a PDF,
But
I
would you
can
be
do
able to
that.
see the comments as a PDF?
No. Not as a PDF.
No.
And I'd have to double check maybe with Jason to see if like
Screenshot.
anyone with a link can view it, the comments as well. I'm not certain on that.
You be able to see like the selections and the policy committee changes?
Yep,
Well, you
so-
basically see that, right?
You can see all of those.
Yep. You'd see all the different color coding
So they
and-
would also see not only what Neola recommended, but also what the policy committee recommended?
You'd see all the different, all that within it, like this, all that.
I like that.
Well, if we can
I
do that-
agree, I think it should be visible, that's, for 2 years we talked about that, 'cause I thought, like, why, I had the same question,
So.
but we need that approval.
For
Then we fix
Neola
it,
to do it.
yeah.
So do we want to keep, okay, so it sounds like we want to PDF that and then link it to this agenda. The next one, we'll add these again to the next one. Do we want to go through additional comments tonight, though?
Well, I would like to, so we
Okay.
can clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up.
All right, let's do that.
All right, so I believe everyone was good with 1 through 6. All right, number 7, the policy 5517, student anti-harassment, I added a new comment with our new high school assistant principal's name. I corrected the title, I kept the same, well, I corrected the phone number, it didn't have 4848. I don't know why, but I fixed that, but I kept it the same extension. I think it's 580. And I gave what her new email address would be. But that's the only thing that needed to be fixed in 5517. The anti-harassment, you know where you have the compliance officers?
Yeah.
Okay. So is everybody good with that one? All right. Number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 were all good as we went through them at our first reading. Number 5, does anybody have a question or a comment about any of those? All right, number 15 was deleted when I amended the agenda. Number 16 and 17 were good as we went through them in the first reading. Is that correct? Anybody have a question or anything about those two? All right, number 18, policy 2413, health education. I reached out to the Neola representative about that. Danny had stated that she would like, there's a deleted sentence in this one. It's the second sentence in the second paragraph. And Danny had made a recommendation that we keep that sentence and add to it that it would also include district administrator approved resources. So I reached out to Neola and asked, why did Neola delete that sentence? And what would you think if we kept it and added that part about district administrative approved resources? And I attached from his email that went to Danny and Ian and Shannon and also Alicia, his response. So he says the reason Neola deleted that sentence is because it provides a better alignment with the recent statutory changes reflected in the specific policy 2414, human growth and development, where it is a requirement to provide a similar notification. All other requests by parents to review regular classroom materials is provided as part of policy 9130, public requests, suggestions or complaints, which is also a policy within your updates this volume. Neola's general practice is to not include notifications that are not required by statute, since there are so many that are. This revision is recommended by Neola for consistency with other policy and statutory requirements. Regarding leaving the statement in the policy and adding the additional language of "and all resources deemed appropriate by the district administrator," this additional statement again is redundant and less inclusive compared to what is already included in your policy 9130, which covers all materials and resources deemed appropriate by the administration or teachers in the classrooms. So based on that feedback, you know, I would recommend personally as an individual that we take this policy as it is with the option that the policy committee chose. There were 3 options, and the policy committee went with the board authorizes the district administrator to determine if an alternative assignment is to be completed by the student that is similar to the subjects and the length of time necessary to complete that. And then there was some stuff about the guidelines, and we have the administrative guidelines. So Shannon recommended that they not be included, which is typical in all of our policies. When we have the guidelines, we don't put the guidelines in the policy also. The guidelines are separate. Also, Shannon, we had a talk a couple months ago about work that staff was doing in creating a syllabus regardless of grade level and having that available with the resources they use.
Course syllabus.
Do you remember what I'm talking
Yep.
about?
Yep.
Can you talk about that with the rest of the board, please?
So, well, let's see. I gotta think for a second. I didn't know I was gonna talk about this. Basically having all staff K-12 go through and create a course overview document for what's happening either in their grade level, kind of per core class, or like if you go all the way to the high school, every course that's taught in the high school would then have a course overview, or I guess a better way to say it would be a syllabus essentially, right? We have that across campus in pockets. It's kind of our response to trying to get everyone on the same page for having a document that would be easily shareable either on their website, Google Classroom, to parents at the start of the year, but having some consistency in terms of what's on that document. Obviously, elementary document is going to look different than high school document, but and having some of those core components being, again, resources, essential standards being taught, kind of those kinds of things. So
And maybe titles of units or something like that?
Yep, units being taught, along with, I guess, what I would consider the typical things that are in a syllabus in terms of, you know, homework and grading policy, you know, that kind of stuff. So that has been happening in the buildings over the course of kind of the second half of the year. I don't think all of them are completed yet, but certainly much farther along than we were 6 months ago. Just again, trying to get some consistency for, again, part of it certainly trying to get parents information, but again, looking at, for example, if we have 2 teachers that are teaching the same course, do those courses look the same? They should have the same syllabus, right? You know, that kind of thing. So multifaceted in terms of the why. But I would say finishing up that work kind of now. So.
Do you think those documents will be available by the beginning of the next school year, district-wide?
Well, I think the expectation will be that those documents in some way, shape, or form are used at the beginning of the school year as a communication tool for parents. Again, also having conversations within PLCs in terms of consistency across grade levels or courses. So I'm going to go on record in saying I believe so. Actually, it's an agenda item on our agenda tomorrow that I just added yesterday. So I'm trying to get a gauge of where each building is right now with that work, because I know they've been spending time during professional development days doing that kind of stuff too. So I would say most likely that was the intent of having it ready by the beginning of the school year. So.
Because I think that's another component that wouldn't necessarily be in this policy, but it addresses some of the concerns that you had.
Yep, that would be helpful.
So we need to make a decision about what we're going to do about this policy.
Well, don't we have another 2 weeks anyway, so aren't we gonna, I need another couple weeks just to, it's a new policy, health education is broad. I would like to do some more research on it. So, that'll be a couple weeks.
Make a motion to table that policy.
probably have to table on all of them if we're gonna
Yeah.
PDF all of them. So I don't think we're gonna approve
Okay.
them tonight. Just like kind of hurt everybody, felt the words in everyone's mouth.
Well, I was hoping that we could approve the ones that we agreed on, but, I mean, I'm only one person, so.
I don't think there's any rush. is there?
Okay, any other comments on 2413?
Well, so are we gonna do this again in 2 weeks? We're gonna go through these all? Like, can't we agree to what we agree on? And if this one, I mean, if we need to table this one, fine, but aren't we agreeing to the other ones? So at least we can,
Right.
they'll come back on the next agenda, but we're not gonna go through them all. They're gonna be just a link so that everybody can see them, and that way we can just approve them in a batch.
Yeah.
But if we need to pull this one out, then
Yep, I've got it highlighted.
I just don't wanna spend another 30 minutes going through these
Right.
if we don't have to.
So then, number,
when-
what, go ahead.
But when would we go through it then? We'd have to go through it at some point. Like if we go through the list and we, approve 1 through 23 and this one's number 24.
Well, I'm just saying, essentially, we'd say, we're good to go, we're gonna link it, for the next meeting, it's gonna be there, and then we can just approve it.
And
We don't
can
need to go
just
through.
talk about particular ones that need to be addressed.
Like this one.
And so far, it's only one.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, do we have any discussion we want to have on 2413 in addition to what already stated, or do you have anything now? Or do we-
I might not know, because I just got this information today. So.
Okay.
Number 19 was okay at the first reading. Any questions about policy 6611? Number 20, is policy 8120 volunteers. We were waiting to get some information from our Neola representative about some options in that one. Because what we had a question about was, it had to do with background checks and things for volunteers, and we had a question about, well, what about the volunteers who volunteer in our school after the school day? For example, by working in concession stands and the post-prom party. And our Neola representative confirmed that this policy refers only to the school day volunteers. Because our students, and I added this in a comment, so if you go to the,
Volunteers in the school day,
Yeah.
when students are required.
when they're required to be here, yes. And so therefore, all of these options, there's a paragraph, after the first 2 paragraphs, there are a bunch of options, and we have not checked any because we weren't sure if this applied to every volunteer in the whole school district, regardless of what time. But since it's only during the school day, we agreed that all of these options should be checked. It's what we currently do. We do background checks before anybody is able to be a volunteer in a school during the school day. And we also have the Raptor system, which does a constant updated check with the sex offenders registry. So this one is ready to go now also. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about this one? Then, numbers 21, 22, 23, and 24 should be okay as we went through them in our first reading.
Okay, so Alicia's going to PDF these, or this document, and link it. Do we want to link it to this one, or are we linking it to the next meeting, or are we linking it to this agenda?
Link to the next one and we'll approve it. Or
Is that going to give people
or
time,
any
if they want
issues.
to get it a few days ahead of time, if they want to see it?
I think-
Link it now.
Link it now,
Is that something
because that would give.
happen?
So, just so I'm clear on what I'm doing, you want me to take each one of these, so the ones that have the new or we do not have policies you're talking about, and also this document that has updating active ones that we currently have. You want them both downloaded as a PDF and then
Use now
linked?
This whole 60 pages in one?
It'll just be like a running doc, page 1, 2, So PDFs, linking it to this agenda. That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing each individual policy, you're just doing
Nope,
one big
it's
document.
one big
Yeah.
document. One link, one document. Well, I mean,
There's 2 documents.
2 documents,
Yeah.
2 links.
Yeah,
So they'll be
That's-
linked to both agendas then.
so we'll link it to this one. and then
But
we'll
just
link
as it is right now, not cleaned up, not just everything as it
and
is.
see who made each comment, Lori, you do it.
But you won't see comments.
Won't see comments.
But
It's a
see the
PDF.
changes.
All over the board
See the
or
changes.
whoever.
Changes in who made them.
So it'll just be the colors that, can you scroll up again to the top, Alicia?
Yep.
The only thing that a PDF would show is where your little key is. It would show everything, all those highlights and what they mean.
Yep.
The comments on the side are not visible with a PDF.
If you want it as a Google Doc as it is right now, that can be done too. I just have to check on if anyone with a link can also see comments as well. That part I'm not sure on.
I would suggest a PDF.
Yeah, I'd rather do a PDF. I don't wanna be
Yeah,
Google Doc. So,
okay, yep, all right, got it, yep.
everyone go with PDF?
Yes.
We'll link it to this one, and I'll link it to the next one, and
Okay.
then we'll have them for approval on the next meeting.
So for the work session,
Yep.
okay.
With the exception of that one that we'll have discussion most likely and then potential approval.
Yep.
Right?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for everyone's work on that one. Okay, item 9, so we have 2 different policy requests. So policy 9140, Citizens Advisory Committee, we brought this, or this was requested last time to be on. So we're just looking at it again, and you asked to bring it.
We did. In addition to the strategic plan 4th pillar on the community that I mentioned last meeting, one of our district core values is involved communities foster strong schools. The National School Boards Association states that the fundamental role of school boards is to work with their communities to improve student achievement in their local public schools. Further, Allison Sloan, writing for NASB, says parents are often the most overlooked component of a student's education, and she states regardless of family income or background, students whose parents are involved in their schooling are more likely to have higher grades and test scores, attend school regularly, have better social skills, show improved behavior, and adapt well to school. The more comprehensive and well-planned the partnership between school and home, the higher the student achievement. And then sociologist Joyce Epstein has argued that school, family, and community are important spheres of influence on children's development, and that a child's educational development is significantly enhanced when these 3 environments work collaboratively towards shared goals. Thus, I think policy 9140, citizen advisory committees composed of mostly parents and community members would be beneficial to our students and our families. So, I would like to make a motion that this.
Before we.
Sure, discussion.
Yeah, before we make, because at the last meeting, Bruce had asked Shannon to contact Neola and get from Neola the pros and cons of this policy, because our representative of the 21, he has 21 schools, I believe, that he represents, only 25% of them take it about. So I was wondering if you had had a chance to find out about the pros and cons of this policy, if there are any?
Yep, so I sent the board an update on what I had. Basically, I know, you had asked about this, or did you call about this earlier too? So did the rest of you get my update? At some point, the email?
All it says is who, the percentage of schools who took it. There was nothing in there about the pros or cons.
Right, because he provided very little pros and cons. It wasn't like an exhaustive list. He basically said, and you know, he and I went back and forth a couple times, and I wouldn't say he ever came out and said, well, here's why these districts take it and here's why these districts don't take it. His take was that a policy like this provides a consistent structure, that if you have committees or you're gonna create committees, it's kind of there, it's outlined. And versus if you don't have it, that potentially provides a little more flexibility. You're not necessarily tied to this, but that's kind of what he meant, was there's pros and cons depending on the board's preference of if you're looking for consistency where it's all spelled out, then that's kind of what this is. If the board is more inclined for flexibility, then you wouldn't necessarily have the policy. So.
I love the policy. So he said, came back with 6 out of 21 in the Northwest region that he's the rep of, but I went on the Neola website and went through 336 districts, and 184 out of the 336 use this policy, so that's over 50%. And I think we should be part of the 50%.
And we are Somerset, we don't have to measure ourselves against everybody else. And we just had an election, and parental involvement was very important. Transparency was very important. And this is one way to hopefully turn things around and start getting enrollment to go up. The more involvement we have with parents, the more communication, transparency, the better off we're going to be. So I think it's a win-win. And Dan, I had a question for you. So what percentage of parents would have to be on a committee like this? The majority?
The majority would be preferred.
Okay.
Well,
Sounds like a
that's
good
not
thing.
outlined anywhere in
That's not
this
outlined
policy.
there, no. Yeah. So we could put this policy to the policy committee and
I think that would be
request
good.
that change.
How many committees have been formed?
To the policy committee to discuss it.
This one, just put this one to the policy committee. And then
There'll be options, rewording, whatever we come up with.
How many committees were formed this school year where this would apply? Do you have any idea? Do you guys have any idea?
I can only think of 2 that are required by state statute. One is the wellness committee that Shannon mentioned earlier, and the other one is policy 2414, human growth and development.
So how does that tie to this one? So like those have a policy that talk about how that committee is formed.
Yes, and in those specific policies, it addresses who may be included.
So this policy would affect that.
Does one supersede the other? I mean, that's my question.
I think human growth and development has its own, because that's,
It's in
by
state
state law, you
statute.
have to have.
Has to have a committee.
And that's why, I'm a little hesitant about, I didn't ask at that question. If we adopt this policy, how does it affect the other policies that we already have that include advisory committees, because it's in the state law that you do. And, those committees, the law is different for each of them about who.
But like a parent group, is a parent
So
group an advisory committee? That would not be. So like what would this apply to?
Well, whatever the board decided to form an advisory committee on, it explains how it's formed, limits the scope of what the committee's looking at specifically, establishes a timeline for it, and resolves it once over. It's pretty clean if
The parent
you
group
need to
isn't
use one.
directed or created by the board through policy.
Well, it gives you options
These
to
are
have some
through
creative
policy.
ideas, right? Like student-run businesses would be an example, safety. Ways to think outside the box and have involvement from voices, within the community and our parents.
Which we do now, we just don't have a policy that outlines it. Right?
Let's have a policy.
So is this part of like our referendum committee and a strategic plan?
Yeah.
So does that limit then how those are handled? I'm just, that was a huge group with a lot of, could that hinder some of those?
Well, it says right in this policy that,
Staff members shall not constitute other than minority.
no, it doesn't say that. Oh, yeah, it does.
Pretty sure it does,
Yeah. But it says something about The structure and organization of an advisory committee shall be determined by the board as appropriate to the assignment. So if the board determines that the structure and organization of an advisory committee should have more staff members on it, then, you know, according to this policy, we have that right.
So like people apply to be on these committees then?
You just apply.
Well, you have to
Just be
ask for
appointed.
volunteers mostly.
But it's, you know, it says we're supposed to, should be determined by the board to decide. So, Ian, your comment was to have the policy committee review it and look into it with Neola and talk through it.
And then
come back
present
with
it.
a recommendation.
Present it for a first and second reading and talk with the entire board.
Is that something?
Sure, I mean, we're already talking about it right now, but we can do that.
I guess I'd like to see the application, like why do we need to add another policy? Like we have committees, we have the ability to form them and to do everything that Steve mentioned, which I think are great things. I'm just curious about what the application of the policy is to that, and does that limit it in any fashion, because now there's restrictions on what it can be. I don't know, this is the first time we've talked about it, so. We have the policy that cover the big things, the health education, like the advisory committee, the involvement with the parent, like that's all there, so I feel good about that. This doesn't cover any of those real critical pieces for me, unless I'm totally missing something. So I would just like to see, and from the policy committee, what is the goal that we're trying to accomplish by adopting this?
Parental and community involvement.
But don't we
Or
do,
tools in
what's
the
missing
toolbox.
now? What tool, I guess what tool does this add? And then what are we missing right now by not having it?
The only thing this policy adds is the guidelines and clearly stated method that is used to create a citizens advisory committee.
Okay.
Requires board approval to be used for anything.
Right.
And oversight.
And you
Yeah.
establish the parameters, so.
So if this does get approved, then someone would have to present that they want a committee on X topic, and then the board would appoint people, or people would be coming forward to be a part of this group, and then we would say, yes, go ahead with this group of people, or people go, I'm just, like, how do we put people on this?
It'll probably start with a volunteer and end with being appointed.
I just wondered how that differs from what we're doing right now, that's all. I just wonder if it's gonna limit the scope of that committee, because
It's just clean, it narrows it down, this is what we're gonna do, this is what they're gonna do, how long they're gonna take to do it, and get it back and present it to the board, this is what we found.
I mean, you could establish 2 meetings, 4 meetings.
Depending on what it
Yeah,
is,
whatever
the
the
board
goals
would
are.
have to figure out what they want to establish it for. I don't think there's anything nefarious hidden inside it. I think
No, I
we could
agree.
probably go over it as a committee and fine tune it, come back with it.
So is that okay for everybody to have the policy committee review and we dive in? It's June or July or whatever, they get to feel comfortable with bringing it back, put it on the agenda?
Well, I don't know that we'd be ready to come back by the June work session. Do you? I don't. The July work session.
Well, I mean, it would require a meeting.
Yeah.
We have to schedule a meeting. We will get it back to you as soon as we can.
Everyone okay with that? Okay. All right, next item is another policy, Danny.
Yes.
The student privacy, I think, which Steve, you brought up the survey.
Yes, so policy 2416 references that there should be a yearly notification to families about the student privacy and parental access to information, and I'm just wondering where that's been the last few years, because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, because we haven't sent it.
Okay.
There you go.
And then also wondering who's written the last set of surveys. Has that been an in-house staff and.
Like these?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
staff.
Shannon, don't we have information about this in our student handbooks?
Well, information about which part?
About, let's see. Let me see, is Sarah's still here and Pam. I thought we had someplace in our student handbook, something about the youth risk behavior assessment or something like that. I might be saying it not exactly right. And that it would be done, a certain amount of times a year. I think it's like one. And that parents have that opt-out policy, the option to opt their child out of taking that survey. Is this ringing a bell?
So if we get selected and the youth risk behavior survey is generally given once every other year.
Every other.
And so we wouldn't send a notice every year for it. We send a notice prior to students taking it so that parents have the option to opt them out. We do utilize the My Savers, and we do send a notification in the fall regarding that. Parents have the opportunity to opt out at that time. And so at least we in the middle school keep a running list. And so once a parent opts a child out, if they opt out in 5th grade, we don't have them take it the rest of the time they're in the middle school.
And I think that's maybe where the opportunity, kind of what you're saying, just to clean it up, basically, of like, right, is that?
Because we are.
But I think, right, like, are things being sent home? Yes, in terms of how you read it here, and I think, I'm trying to get to what I think you're getting at in terms of like an annual, beginning of the year, like I'm making this number up, but every September 1st, like here, an annual statement based off of, right, like here are the assessments that might be given, those kinds of things versus.
If you know that, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're planning,
Yeah.
that should be, or even just the policy in general, because that's what it says in the policy,
Right.
is that this policy should be given no matter what.
Right.
So then I think that this should also go to the policy committee to, some parents have reached out and they're just not happy that their kids are being surveyed without their knowledge. It doesn't matter what the topic, it doesn't matter what the age. So I think we should think about as on the policy committee that parents be notified of any survey,
So what do you classify as a survey then?
anything.
Questions?
Any
So
questions that are not
I'm a teacher
related to
in
that.
a classroom, and I want to take a survey of my class to get an idea of their background knowledge of a topic. That's a survey?
Well, it needs to, I think it needs to pertain to classroom instruction for if it's environment and if it's emotional and if it's
Right.
safety and anything that's not directly educational related, parents need to know.
Agreed.
The difference, what,
Because.
between this existing, the active policy and the template, what would you select out of the template different than what's in this one?
I just want to add to it.
So you want to add to it things that are not even available through Neola in the template?
That's right. Yep. I want to add new verbiage that parents will be notified of the survey. Not related to education specifically.
How would that even work?
So I hear you, and I'm trying to get there, because I think that was just my first initial question of, well, let me go back to like the survey here, like, would anything have been hurt by sending it home? Of course not, like, absolutely, right, it makes sense. I think the way that we've been navigating has been, if it doesn't fall into one of these 8 things, then we haven't necessarily been sending something home. I think, as you mentioned, My Savers, youth risk behavior, those are typically the 2 big ones that I would consider that are third party, that hit almost every one of these, right? Sending something home ahead of time, absolutely. And at the end of the day, we'll follow the directive of the board for sure. I think just the gray for me is, and what you said helps a little bit kind of clarify that, but so our teachers have to give 2 surveys every year per educator effectiveness. It's required by state law. Most of the questions in there aren't necessarily all what I would consider education related, but I think that's where I would need more clarification of what even that means. Does that make sense? Of like, because again, every survey looks different because teachers can create it. Teachers have autonomy to decide what those questions are. Many of them are surveying engagement. It could be classroom climate. It could be, is the class challenging enough? I mean, there's a million ways to kind of do it, right? But those are 2 surveys that have to go home, and each one looks a little bit different. You have teachers that I know every day when kids come into class, they have something on the board, kind of a would you rather, right? Do you want recess in the morning or recess in the afternoon? Would you prefer McDonald's or Burger King? Those kinds of things. I don't know how granular you're thinking, and I'm trying to understand kind of what you're saying because I hear you. But that would be most helpful for me, is when you guys have this discussion, like being crystal clear about what is your definition of a survey, because we're gathering feedback from kids probably every day in some way, shape, or form. Some of it informally, some of it on whiteboard, some of it on paper. We give careers and skills inventories. We have interest inventories, advisory circles. Many of the things that you just heard Catherine talk about end up kind of de facto becoming a survey. So we'll do whatever the work of the board is. That would be helpful for me to kind of narrow down some of those definitions of, and then what is realistic and practical for staff to still be able to do their job, but also satisfying what you're saying of bringing parents into the know, doing a better job of that, if that makes sense. So,
I think anything that you are looking to produce an outcome for the building, for the students, and then if parents can see the results of that too, I mean, that's a whole other layer, but I think that I would like survey results to be sent to parents.
okay, so let me ask you this. So like at the high school, we give surveys on parking spots, locker preference, courses, or even surveys about like the high school schedule at times of, do you like advisory in the morning, middle of the day, afternoon, those kinds of things. Like, is that, because those things produce outcomes, is that what you're talking about? Like, okay.
Especially related to the schedule, there's a lot of parents that would like to, my son actually was asking me those questions on that survey. He wasn't sure, so I was like, this is odd. So, yeah, I think parents need to see those.
So those are the things then that, as you're doing your work as a board, the clearer you can be will help us execute then what is the will of the entire board. And whatever it is, great,
I guess I just don't want to go down a rabbit hole that every question that gets asked now comes out as a school-wide Somerset survey results on parking spots or lockers, or we like lunch in the morning.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean,
I don't
policy
know
is
if
good.
those have to be published per se, but I think that,
Well, then where are they going?
well, an email to parents with the results. I guess if you call that publishing.
I do.
Okay.
I mean, any output that requires work from people, then I'll send out.
I think regardless, we can establish a clear line.
Right. Reasonable.
And I think being mindful of we have to be allowed to do our day-to-day operations of our work for sure, and also filling that gap of the concerns you're bringing up. Absolutely, and I think that's a great conversation to have. We're not hiding anything, we're not trying to sneak anything past anybody. There's area to improve, great, but I think an equal recognition of we also have to be allowed to be able to do our work as educators. So wherever that lands, great.
I have one more thought. Underneath the opt-out forms on the district website, we've got the directory, media, and library, but we don't have one for surveys. And some parents just want to completely opt out of all surveys, so I think we should have an opt-out form.
Again, I would go back to what is a survey, because I don't want to send us down a rabbit hole of a teacher inadvertently asked a question about recess, it's deemed a survey, and now they violated something. So I think we need to be very careful there. I would just say I hear all this talk about transparency and we're hiding things and this isn't right. I don't see it. This is public education. We sit as a diverse group here on this board. We approve these policies. We stand behind them. We've had nothing come to us to say, holy cow, we have this blatant violation, we have a major issue. I think we are transparent. I mean, I think we can pull transparency out of the air anywhere and say something was hidden. I think there's an application of like what's realistic and real. If we decide to send it to the policy committee, any addition, I would like to see where did it come from? Where's the source? Because I don't think any one board member should be able to put a line on a policy and then I see it in a template and not understand it. So if they do look at it, if there's an addition, I want to know if it came from you, or if it came from Lori or Ian, or Neola, or an attorney. Like, I would like to know where the source of that addition is, because I don't see what the problem is with this. If a parent wants to opt out, great. But I think we are starting to blur the lines in terms of surveys when we start going down this rabbit hole. This is public education. Again, we have a board that has an administrator that supports the administrator, and I stand by the decisions that the board has made, both current and prior, because I wasn't on the board. They did what they've done. We've worked with it. So I think that we need to be very careful, and I don't see a reason to send this back to the policy committee for more work, unless there's some issue that we're not talking about here that needs to be addressed. But I'm not hearing a reason right now.
I have a reason, parents concerned.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, so
I don't know where that came from.
So, parents concerned, so I'm just questioning if my son does a survey at school, and I ask him, oh, what was on your survey?
You don't even know though, because they don't even tell you.
But that's where
you know after the fact.
That's where a parent's job comes in. That's we start to get divided. A parent plays a role in their home life and in the education and the upbringing of a child. The public school plays a role. If the parent's not asking questions about what happened during the day, then of course we don't know. It is not the school's job to tell me every single thing that took place. That is my job as a parent, when my child comes home, to dissect what they took in and instill values and morals and beliefs in them and guide them. They get a real world view of everything that they're going to experience, and that's my role as the parent. It's not the school's role to, and it's not another parent's role to decide what my kid experiences.
I think we're derailing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not really addressing all that. If lines are blurred, they're blurred now.
But are they blurred? That's my question.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but anything that would change would require the entire board approval. So I don't think.
That's fine. This is discussion time. That's what this is all about.
Sure.
We're discussing, and what the board decides, 100%. I stand behind what the board decides as a group. But we're discussing, that's all. And those are my opinions and my thoughts.
So if you think everything's hunky-dory, I mean, we're down 24 students since September of 2022, so.
Let's stay on topic with the policy at hand.
Yeah. Well, it relates to it.
All right, so this policy committee, do we want to, I mean, how do these typically work? Because usually Neola brings these policies to us for review. So like, we don't usually just bring policies to the committee for review.
This one exists.
This is one of our active policies, and there is no update because of state law.
Right. So like, bringing it to the policy committee for review, I don't know if it's not being asked to update from Neola, other than having a discussion in an open meeting like this. I don't know why we would bring it to the policy committee to make updates. I mean, the other one I can kind of see because it's new and we don't have it, and it's reviewing and maybe getting more information from Neola, but this one's already in place. If there's verbiage you want added, you know.
It's already in place, but we're not even sending it out as it says we should.
Well, I guess the way I read this was if it doesn't have these items, A through H in it, then we don't need to send out.
Right.
That's not how I read it.
Oh.
No student shall be required to be part of a school district without written consent of the student. that reveals
A through
information
H.
concerning A through H.
And then you go down further.
Notify parents in writing of any surveys, analyses, or evaluations which may reveal any of the information as identified in A through H. That's the law.
So if, yeah,
Well, then it was about that. I'm still looking for it, but there's a sentence in there where yearly this policy is to be sent out.
Okay, I think what you're talking about is, the district, okay, so there's some more letters, A through D, and then there's 3 paragraphs below that. And in that paragraph, the first sentence states, the district administrator is directed to provide notice directly to parents of students enrolled in the district of the substantive content of this policy. And the way I interpret that is what we're doing with the SABRs and the youth risk assessment. And we're not doing it at the beginning of the year, but we are doing it, and it doesn't say it has to be at the beginning of the year. It says at least annually. Oh, it does say at the beginning of the school year. And within a reasonable period of time after any substantive change. So we're not doing it at the beginning of the year, we're doing it before the survey happens.
Well, my Sabres, for example, is given in the fall,
So
so
it's
that would go
coming.
home in the fall, but. I mean, to me, this is an easy one of, if the board would prefer just sending the whole policy, that can be fixed in 2 seconds. I can send the whole policy, just, but Dan, you're not wrong, I have not been sending the whole policy. That is true. I was reading it as if Lori was saying it, but if I haven't been interpreting right, I can fix that in 2 seconds.
so how do we want to continue on this policy?
I still would like to send it to the policy committee.
I don't think we need to change. We want to do a vote, I don't, it doesn't matter to me.
And why do you want to send it to the policy committee, Danny?
To discuss parents being notified of any survey. I mean, we can discuss more what, but I mean, I already thought I made it clear with like surveys that are not pertaining directly to educational material.
How's your
I think anything that you know, the
I'm not
teacher
trying-
reads off and gets a whole collective body of information that's used to produce an outcome that's going to,
So Danny, do you have any specific language in mind that you would like to add?
I'm gonna think about that.
Okay, so maybe what, because I don't think this should come back to the policy committee, I think this should come back to the entire board
Yeah, I agree.
for discussion. And if there's specific language that you would like to add or change to this policy, then I think the entire board should be involved in that discussion.
Sounds good.
I agree, yeah, we can bring it back for discussion again on the next agenda. And if anybody has language or anything they want to look into. Good?
Yep.
Okay.
So sorry, you want that back the first meeting in June?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right. Next item, meeting date change. So June 3rd, I think Shannon sent out an email to everybody. Lori has a CISA meeting on June 3rd. So we're discussing the possible option of moving that meeting to a different night that week.
So the board has appointed me to be the CISA representative, so it's part of my board responsibility to attend the CISA meetings. And since I was appointed to be at the CISA meeting, I would like some flexibility with our own school district meeting. to accommodate that participation.
3 to 6, 4.
So I was hoping that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, if we could, that we might be able to change our meeting to one of those 3 days of the same week. So 4, 5, or 6.
Tuesday the 4th work at 6 for everybody.
It's good for me.
Ian? Danny? Matt?
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Do we have to make a motion on that, I guess?
I think so.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to move our next meeting from Monday, June 3rd to Tuesday, June 4th.
Second?
I'll second.
Lori makes a motion, Ian seconds.
Just confirm 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
It's all right with me.
Whatever you call it. Yeah. 6 o'clock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll make the adjustment. Is that good, Alicia? Good with that? Shannon, I didn't ask you, so good with that?
Yep.
All right. Okay, consent agenda. Anybody want to make a motion to make any updates or make any changes?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda item 11A, 12, B, 12, C1 as presented on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. General information, our next meeting will be June 4th, work session June 4th, and then the listening session will be June 17th. With the listening session 30 minutes prior. District celebrations, Danny, so with you.
Congratulations to everybody who graduated this past weekend. I hope we get to see some of our graduates come back and visit. They've been, some of them, excellent role models for my kids, and I'm just really proud of them. I can't wait to see what they do.
I got nothing this week.
Steve.
Elementary school grandparents' day, that was a lot of fun, so, thanks.
Ian.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Victoria and Tori for being our student representatives, and Catherine and Nancy and Heidi for presenting tonight, and thank the board for having me represent at commencement. It was fun. I hope I didn't embarrass anybody.
Only your own children.
Lori.
We had the scholarship award ceremony last Wednesday, and the Somerset Memorial Scholarship Fund Committee presented 64 scholarships for a total value of $82,700. And if anybody listening is interested in joining our scholarship committee meeting, please feel free to contact our president, Pam Powers, or you can contact me if you'd like. I am still in the Somerset phone book. And I'd also like to thank our health services staff, Kayla, Cody, and Carly. Kayla Mikla, our district school nurse, put together a fabulous summer health information piece that was in the Spartan Scoop that Alicia sent out last Friday. And besides all the information she had in it, there are many, many links going out to other resources. Everything from, protection from the sun and staying hydrated and getting exercise and mental health. Lots of great information, so thank you to them.
All right, thanks, Lori. Just the spring sports this week with other regional games and track tonight. Good luck to them. Parents, don't forget to do your parent survey that was sent out. And then I had my middle school or sixth grade went to that Viz Town last week, and my wife thought it was hilarious and loved it, and thought it was such a great thing. So thanks for the middle school for continuing to do that. It was, our kid who brought it up, he did respond to that one. He did like doing it, so thanks for doing that. That was cool. All right, so the next item we have is, the next item is a closed session pursuant Wisconsin statute 19.851D for the purpose of discussing and considering strategy for crime detection or prevention on school property or on district property. Board has the need and authority to discuss potential school safety plans in closed session, because holding this discussion in open session may undermine the district's attempts to keep safety strategies confidential so as not to allow individuals to plan around those strategies. Is there a motion to go into closed session for the reasons discussed?
So move.
Second.
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Steve, you want to start?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Danny?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
All right, we'll now move into closed session. I'm gonna take